All right, so there's 5 things that I consider a must know for landscape lighting if you are going to be an installer. So let's talk about what those 5 things are. The first thing is going to be /voltage ratings for basically your transformer. You're going to need to know the ratings for that, and your wire load, and your operating voltage for your fixtures. So this amperage and voltage rating has to do with a lot of things that you're going to test inside of the transformer. You need to know your wire loads. Obviously, you need to know how many amps you can actually have on the wire that you're using, depending if it's 14, 12, 10, maybe an 8. Don't see a lot of that much anymore, but you certainly see these 3 used. So you need to know how much you can load those up to. And then your operating voltage for your fixtures. And that's going to vary from manufacturer to manufacturer sometimes, but you need to know what that operating voltage actually looks like for whatever product you're putting in. So that's the number 1 thing. Knowing this of your whole lighting system, if you don't know what amperages or if you don't know what voltage readings your system can even have, just the basics of it, it's going to be really hard to service your systems. You're going to have a lot of problems. Yes, it's very easy to make these systems turn on. It's really quite simple with LED. I've seen a lot of people where they just hook up a fixture and then go to the next, and they just in series go right on down and just hook up every single fixture. And that certainly can get really dangerous really quick if you're not paying attention to how much of a load that you're putting onto that particular wire. So knowing your voltage and your amperage readings is probably one of the most important things that you need to know starting off before you start doing landscape lighting. All right, let's go to number 2 is how to size a transformer. So this is really important because we don't want to overload our transformer and cause any problems. And we also want to make sure that we also have enough room for any type of expansion with these systems. A lot of times people, once they get their lights in, they decide to add a couple lights here and there. And if you're selling them a transformer that's completely filled up, or there's no more room to grow with it, that can be a problem. Or it's going to be a little annoying when you have to go back to them and say, well, now we got to replace the transformer. We got to sell you a bigger size. So it's really important that how to size your transformer. And that's going to vary with obviously the type of fixtures that you're using, and we get into some of that. But once you know how to size your transformer, then you can correctly sell them what they need and make sure that they have room for any type of add-ons that they want to do. And most importantly, you're not overloading that transformer and causing any harm, or even worse, heat and amperage. That can always get a little scary. So make sure that you know how to size a transformer. That's your second thing that you need to know. Number 3 is you need to really have a wire load reference sheet, or at least know approximately how many wattages you can have on one run of wire. So I'm going to call it the wire load guide. And this is something that we teach where you can actually make a guide. That way when you're out in the field, you can actually have something just to reference. So as long as the VA total that you have for one run of wire, you can just refer to this little guide. It'll tell you exactly, depending on how many feet, if you can either measurement or if you can guesstimate about how far you went, it'll tell you even on what voltage tap, what your last fixture will have for a voltage reading. So these little guides are really nice just to have. It just also helps for something, if you have this in the field and all your guys have it, they can refer to it and there's no questions asked. It's written down. They don't have to sit there and do the math or anything. So a wire load guide is something that you really need to have. You should know how to do that, but at least your team has that reference load guide. That way they know exactly how to hook everything up and they don't overload the wire or the transformer for that matter. All right, number 4 is a big one. This is your transformer guide, amps and volts. A lot of transformers are very similar in landscape lighting, but they're not all the same. And you need to be able to know what you're looking for, rather if it's on the primary side or the secondary side, the amperage rating for it, what's the capacity, what does the transformer allow for you to load it up. Most of these transformers are all pretty much the same, but you can't assume that they're not. So once you know what a standard amperage reading is for maybe the primary side or maybe the secondary side, then you can double check the manufacturer tag, make sure that you're in line with that, and assuming that you're all good to go. But knowing what to look for, knowing what is the standard in the industry are things that you got to know before you're out there doing these installations and just hooking up lights everywhere. So that is your transformer guide, amps and volts. All right, so number 5 is you need to know how to troubleshoot, and you can even have flow charts to help your crew, which will allow them to follow step by step by step. That way they know exactly what they need to do. They can start at the power source and work their way out, double checking things depending on what maybe the problem might be. But to understand troubleshooting, there's a few different things that you have to actually know. This is probably going to be something that is one of the hardest things to develop in the beginning. Once you get used to putting these systems in and seeing what goes on, you have a better understanding. But having these flow charts that give your team a reference on where to go and what to start, or where to start and how to actually correct something, that's a huge time saver. So having flow charts is a big thing that you can do to help your crew out. These are the 5 things that you really need to know, but I'm going to give you 2 other things that are going to add some value. So I'm going to give you a bonus, and the bonus is going to be understanding when your installer can understand a little bit more of the design of the system. They understand the lumens, the beam angles, the color temperatures. That's going to make them even more valuable when they're out in the field installing these systems. So it'll help them understand also lighting technique when they know how to create a grazing technique versus a wall wash technique, or maybe doing some type of backlighting, silhouette lighting. If they understand how to accomplish, that makes them so much more valuable out in the field when they're working on an installation. And literally just moving a light maybe a foot or 2 one way or the other can really make a big difference. So when your team is educated and they understand how to do basically lumens and beam angle guide with lighting techniques, this becomes a very valuable person in your business. When they can do all that in addition to the installation, when they understand what the designer is trying to do, this puts them at a really valuable spot and makes them honestly save a lot of time. They can get things set up, and as they get that experience and as they see these jobs at night, when you do go back for that final adjustment or for the big reveal, there won't be as much adjusting needing if your installation team has things set up 95% of the way. There just might need to be a few little tweaks. So it's so critical that your guys know all this stuff, because if they don't, what do you think's happening? They're costing you time, they're not understanding, they're maybe creating situations that you're gonna have to go back. So invest in this and understand all these, and that's gonna make a huge difference for the installation team, for your business. You're gonna be more profitable, you're gonna be more efficient, and honestly, you're gonna look more professional and you're gonna create a better customer experience. If you have any other questions, always glad to help you at the Outdoor Lighting Hub.